It's time for a new perspective with your host, Pastor Mike Sherbino. A word to the wise from someone who's been pastoring people in churches for a whole lot of years. This is the Sunday special edition, but you may be watching on another day because Mike's message isn't only for Sundays, but for every day. Mike brings a host of people together to talk about the complexities of this life, of being a Christian in a world that seems to be going in reverse sometimes. But most importantly, a comfort for your heart, mind, and soul, because that's exactly what Jesus wants for you. From one of his mighty churches just outside of Toronto, here's Mike Sherbino.
Hey, welcome to the Sunday edition of The Perspective. You might be watching this on another day. That's okay, but we especially created this for Sunday, and especially this week for Mother's Day, because we want to honor moms throughout this entire week here on The Perspective. And I'm delighted today that Ashley is with me. Ashley, glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
In case everybody doesn't know, I got 5 daughters, and you're daughter number 2, but today you're daughter number 1. Okay.
Wow, yeah. We always get a number, right?
We all had a number, and someday we'll get it all tattooed. It's, as we're thinking about Mother's Day and Mother's Week, okay, what was the quirkiest thing that Mom has ever done? And what do you love the most about her?
Well, listen, I can just call up something from 2 days ago or a few days ago when she dressed up as Carol Burnett. And that we always knew. Mom loved the costume. She loved, we could show up at home with our friends and we never knew what to expect when we opened the door, who she would be. So yeah, she liked to dress up.
Well, you know what? I have to live with that as well, okay? But she's a pretty special lady. And not everyone has that fantastic relationship that I know you have with Mom. And, we're all, like as I say, I married way above my pay grade. But we have a lady here today. She's a favorite of the show. I've really come to appreciate her. She actually laughs at my jokes, and I think she actually believes that I'm funny. But Rachel Baribeau was with us, former ESPN commentator, sportscaster. She is the president of, I guess it's the president, is that Rachel, of hashtag I'm changing the narrative. What's your official title?
I use founder, but I like president. I like CEO. I'll use all those things.
Yeah, I'll just pour it on, okay? And just whatever makes you feel good, I'm going to call you that today because I'm so glad you've chimed in, even from your car, okay?
Yes.
Thank you for being with us. Rachel, with Mother's Day, it probably evokes all sorts of memories for people, but especially for you. Tell me why.
Yes, I lost my mother. It was 4 years ago on May 1st. And then my birthday is May 30th. And then Mother's Day is May. So it's an extremely complicated, beautiful, hard, amazing, hard month. And, my mom and I were always close, but it was complicated. And I have an upcoming book I'll talk about a little bit later, Relentless Joy. But in the book, I talk about the fact that if we resist the urge to look away, to run away when it's complicated, and we hang in there, and, the most beautiful things can happen. And I use the example of her death, of staying and being there with her as she passed. Some people say it's too hard, I can't be there, I'll just go later. No. And the other beautiful thing that happened with us is, after her mother, my grandmother, passed away, she and I became best friends. So I was always a soulmate with my grandmother, guys.
Wow.
And very close to my mom, but I was a soulmate to my grandmother. Well, my grandmother passed about 7 years before my mom did. She gave us the beautiful gift of being best friends. I would go on Facebook, guys, and she had already said what I was going to say to my friend, right? Like we could finish each other's sentences. We called each other Booty and Tootie. We had a business together. Ashley, you'll understand this with your mother. We yang at each other, and it wasn't we were fussing or arguing. It was just a language that mothers and daughters, could speak to one another. And I can talk about my mama, but don't nobody else talk about my mama, right? And so it's just a beautiful journey of a relationship. But here's the interesting thing. I recognize not everybody has that. I also recognize that there are people that are grieving people that are alive. They're alive, but people let's say mothers that never lived up to who they were supposed to be as a mother because of their own addiction, their own pain, their own brokenness. So there are people like me that are grieving their mothers this Mother's Day. Also, it's an added layer that I'm a bonus mom, right? So, there's so many layers to this. But then there are people, like I said, that are grieving people that are alive. And then there are people, Ashley, like you, that get to hug your mom who dressed up as Carol Burnett and just tell. I teach people all the time, if your mama is alive, make it right. Bury the hatchet, forgive, love them, tell them you love them. And here's a very powerful thing I say to people when it comes to their parents: forgive them. They were too.
Okay, I got to jump in for a second, okay? Because I got you. You got the gift of talking. You're a preacher, and we keep threatening to bring you up here. It is going to happen. My daughter's a preacher. I should just probably leave right now and let the two of you go at it. But I know Ashley's itching to ask you a question.
Well, I appreciate, Rachel, a lot of those things that you shared, right? Mother's Day is totally a layered event for people and day with all these different feelings and these emotions and grieving. So what would you say, you talk about forgiveness, what else would you say to a woman on Mother's Day that feels this incredible sense of loss or heartbreak, or the relationship isn't amounting to what they want? What would be your message?
It's a great question, and you nailed it. I think we've been saying this since the beginning. It is multi-layered. There are women, let's just say, that couldn't conceive. There are women who have lost babies. There are women who, children have been taken from them far too soon. I mean, there's so many different aspects of it, right? And I would say one, honor that if honor the loss, the life, the whatever it may be, honor them. The second thing, and I did say this before, and I'll say it again, is to forgive. Just because somebody said this to me one time, and it was very powerful. You have a life auditorium, okay, Ashley? You have a life auditorium. And sometimes we put people in the front row that don't deserve to be there, meaning their actions don't match up with maybe their role in your life. Maybe they need to be moved to the back row of your life's auditorium. So just because you forgive your mother for the things that she didn't do or how she hurt you, doesn't mean you can't have boundaries. You can't have healthy, loving boundaries. Maybe you forgive mama, but she's still at the back row of your auditorium until you build trust again, until you build a relationship. Forgiveness doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're just happy-go-lucky and everything's great and I forgive everything that you've done. That doesn't mean that you forgive, but it means there might be some repair that has to happen. The other thing that I think is very interesting, and when I talk about people understanding their adult parents, when you're a child and you grow to be an adult, what I had this powerful experience. I was sharing my testimony and bringing the word at a Christian halfway house that I do twice a year. I've done it for 10 years, sharing my testimony. And a woman came to get me, and she said, "I need you to talk to this other girl. She's running the sound," and she was just about to cry. You could tell she was just tough. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, and her friend spoke for it. She said, "Well, her dad is dying in the hospital just 30 miles down the road, and they don't have a good relationship." And I said to her, just like I'm saying to everybody today, give your father, I told her, go before it's too late, and give your father the best gift that he could give earthside besides salvation, and that is the gift of your forgiveness. I said, because if he passes, you're going to carry this regret with you forever. And here's the other thing about that. When we say forgive our parents, they were learning too. Here's what I said to her that was so powerful, and it came straight from God, just through me. I'm the conduit. It said, he didn't arrive broken. Something happened to him along the way that caused him to be not the father that you needed, that caused him to be whatever it was, how he hurt you. Something happened to him too. God didn't make him broken. So if we can give him earthly forgiveness and let him go to heaven and leave this planet with a clear conscience and knowing that his child forgave him, what a gift that would be. And so I would say that for anybody that has a complicated relationship with a mother. I have people in my life that their mother is not what she needs to be, but guess what? She still wants her mama. This young guy still wants her mom. She's always going to want her mom, even if her mom isn't healthy. We want our mama. know, I'm a grown woman and I miss my mommy. And so that is a fact. And Ashley, you nailed it. It's so layered, and it's something that I'm so grateful for that you guys had me on today to talk about.
Rachel, we're going to be right back in a moment. Stay with us to all our viewers. We're here with Rachel Baribeau, and we're going to be talking more about the significance of Mother's Day. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Rachel Joy Baribeau, former national sportscaster, founder of I'm Changing the Narrative, and upcoming author of a book called Relentless Joy. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But first, I want to drop a nugget of wisdom on you. Have you even pondered? I talk about this about upcoming book. What your ancestors went through. I'm talking about your grandmother's grandmother and your grandfather times 20 for you to even be alive today. Odds are they went through being displaced from their land. They might have gone through slavery. They might have gone through the Depression. They might have gone through food scarcity. You don't know what they went through just for you to be alive today. So let me drop this on you. How dare you not go for that dream? How dare you not go for that job? How dare you not start that business? How dare you not mend that relationship? How dare you not live your life to the absolute fullest? They gave everything for you to be alive today. And so did Jesus, by the way. They lived their life. They overcame so much just for you to be alive today. So go and do it. And also, please grab a copy of Relentless Joy. I'd love to connect with you, and see you soon.
Well, welcome back, and we're here with Rachel. We're having just such a great conversation and talking about even the layers around Mother's Day and all that's involved. So, Rachel, I just wanted to ask you, could you unpack for us and talk a little bit about your relationship with your mom and how you made amends with her exactly?
You know, it was seeing her like Jesus sees us, as a complex human, right? Who was doing the best that she could. I call her in my book an exotic wounded bird. You know, she was beautiful and exotic, but she was a little wounded, right? She had things happen to her in her life, had an alcoholic father. And because of that shaded some of her decisions. And so I
Right.
think when we put Jesus glasses on and look at people like Jesus looks at us, oh my gracious, the grace that we can give to people.
It's amazing what does happen and how that shifts the way that we see people, because often we can notice all the things that are wrong or the ways that they haven't met our expectations. But what does actually Jesus see when he looks at the person? And can we absorb that and see the person the same way, see beyond the error?
Whew. Yeah, you know, I heard somebody say one time, and I think I've said it on the show because y'all are my favorite, is, you know, my goal is to be a Bible with skin on it. Will I ever get there? Absolutely not. None of us will, because we're human, right? And we sin and fall short of the glory of God. But I can aspire to that. And the way that I can aspire to that is show radical grace to people, including those that have hurt me. Yeah.
You know, Rachel, as you think about the different layers, and Ashley's been talking about that, and you think of the people who have hurt you, um, before there was the reconciliation, how did that impact your life and how you did life? So there was a period of brokenness, and you functioned. I mean, God allowed you to have a huge platform as a broadcaster and interviewer. How did you
Yeah.
hold it all together?
By safety pins that were threatening to burst at any point in time. You know, it was God gave me the vision, and he said, you're a runaway train going the wrong way down the track. You're going to kill yourself, kill somebody else, end up in jail, break your family's heart, or all of the above. Let me tell you something. Unprocessed trauma, and Ashley, you get this for what you do. Unprocessed trauma, unprocessed pain, unprocessed anger, all of those things. We call it funky junk in my movement, and I'm changing the narrative. If you don't deal with those things, they will deal with you. And I teach people this all the time. They say, well, I don't have time to take care of myself. I say, do you have time for a breakdown? You know, I mean, it's
That's a pretty good line. But if you were to help people to just even take the first couple steps to deal with the trauma that
yeah.
you're speaking of, what would you suggest to them?
You know, first, if it may be you you may be a mother that hasn't filled, your expectations or hurt somebody. And I think the first step in anything, a 12-step program and repairing relationships, is acknowledgement. The first step in Jesus is saying, I'm a sinner and I've fallen short, God, and I need you. I am, nothing without you, right? You created me. I need you. So I think the first thing is just acknowledging your part in the situation. When you start to acknowledge your part, hey, and let me just use my marriage for an example. When I acknowledge that I've hurt my husband, we can get past things. We can move forward. But if I'm saying, no, I didn't do that, and I'm defensive, we're not going to get anywhere. And so, Mike, you got this. You recognize, as Ashley's dad and a married man, the first step in anything is acknowledgement, and acknowledging that you hurt. And if you're the person that has been hurt, maybe you go to somebody and you say to them that hurt you, the mom figure or whoever it is, a stepmom, whatever, grandmother, whatever. And you say to them, hey, I really would like to repair this relationship with you. But first, can we talk about what transpired? Can we talk about the time that you drank too much, or the time that you left us at Granny's, or the time you chose a man over us, or the time, you yelled at us or had abusive, whatever it is. You would say, it would look like this. I need to discuss those things and get them out on the table so that we can acknowledge them, and then I can work on moving past them. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm going to push back a little bit because that seems like it's a good thing to do, and I would encourage people to follow the advice you've given. But what do you do with the situation where the person denies that they're like that? And I know there's people watching today, and they've tried that approach, and the person says, no, you're all full of hot air. That's not me. They deny it all. What do you do then?
It goes back to my first example of your life's auditorium. Those people need to stay on the back row. You can give somebody forgiveness. You can forgive somebody and still not have them in the front row of your life. You can forgive your mother if she's in active addiction or will not, acknowledge the way she hurt you. You can forgive her, but that doesn't mean you're going to call her on the phone 3 times a day and talk about your outfits and what to make for dinner and do all of those things. I teach people this all the time. You can love people from a distance. And sometimes loving people from a distance is the most healthy thing you can do. If somebody is tormenting and bad for your mental health, bad for your spirit, and causes friction and chaos and pain in your life, you can forgive them and say, Jesus, I forgive them. And hey, Mom, I forgive you. But that doesn't mean, and I tell people this all the time, that doesn't mean poof, it's gone. Poof, we're great. It may be I forgive them every day, and you may have to say it and inch towards it and keep reminding yourself of it, and ask God to help you with it day after day after day after day. Everybody's forgiveness journey looks different. And then some people, there's another layer. We're talking about layers today. The layer is, what if your mom passed and she hurt you? What if you're in jail? What if you're, female in jail and you're not with your children? I work and, do work with women that are coming out of that and about to do more work in prisons. What do you do there? You write letters, you try to make amends. But if somebody's in heaven, maybe you write the letter and you apologize to them. And obviously you're never going to be able to send it. You put it away. Another step is to write their next of kin. If you have done something, if you're a woman that has, perpetrated a crime and somebody's lost their life. I'm talking some deep stuff here, y'all, because stuff. I know you a wide variety of audiences. I've gotten the emails from your listeners. Maybe that's going to the next of kin and saying, hey, this person is no longer here. But, I just want to acknowledge my part in it. But, I also either want to apologize or I want to talk about what they did to me. Do you see what I'm saying? There's always steps you take. And I will tell you this too. My mom used to tell me this, and Ashley, you can probably validate this. Oftentimes when you start this forgiveness journey, it's like a wound. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's like you go into therapy, you go into therapy for one thing and then boop, 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 we uncover more things, and so it might be more painful before it gets better. And I think that I'm always about takeaways. You guys know this from the show, but I'm also about being honest and vulnerable and real. And if I told you that your forgiveness journey is going to be hunky-dory and all roses and daisies, I would be lying to you.
Listen, Rachel, you know what? You imagine our time is up. I just love chatting, love listening to what you're saying. But before we go, I want you to give one more plug for this amazing book that you've got out called Relentless Joy. Where can we find it? Why do we need to get a hold of it? You can blow your own steam right now, okay?
Hey, my mom used to say, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody else is going to toot it for you. So there you go. There's another Gigi-ism. And so it's called Relentless Joy. It's got a blue cover. You can't miss it. I'm on the front. You can find it anywhere books are sold. And I say it's how to find, keep, and cultivate joy in a dark world. And what I think is amazing about the book is that it's part memoir, part self-help, part faith, and part journal. And so there are going to be a lot of people that read this book that are both believers and non-believers. And I said in the front of the book that wherever you are in your faith journey, you don't believe, you believe another faith, your church hurt, mad at God, great Christian for a long time. But at the very least, I hope that by the end of the book, you think Jesus was a really rad dude, because he was a dude. He walked on this earth. And, so I know that a lot of different people are going to be reading it. And finally, I'll say this, is that I kind of liken it to the lunch line. When you're going to the lunch line, you're like, I'm going to take this. I'm not going to take the square pizza. I don't know what that mystery meat is.
Rachel, we're out of time. You're going to come back, though, in a week, right?
Yeah.
You're going to come back in a week, and we're going to do more.
Yeah,
It's always fantastic. Always fantastic having you with us. We love you. Thank you for being with us. And we're going to talk to you next week. I'm looking forward to that program because a couple of your friends are coming on as well. So stay with us. We're going to be right back. I got some teaching. Ashley and I are going to do a little bit of reflection about what Rachel has said. We're glad you're watching.
Representing the full spectrum of the ways one could be called mom. Whether a mother in faith, mentorship, adoption, or by birth, you play an important role in the stories of generations to come. To all the Sarahs, Leahs, Jochebeds, and Naomis, happy Mother's Day.
We're glad you're with us at The Perspective. And Ashley, you think about all that Rachel said, and she can pack a lot in. I love her. She's just a live wire. Just boom, boom, boom. What did you take away?
Well, yeah, she made so many great points, and there was a lot to take away from that. Her whole note on forgiveness, but then the second part was, what do you do when someone doesn't even want to extend forgiveness, or when they don't even want to have the conversation with you and talk about the hurt? So how do you actually keep that person in your life, forgive them, but they're in the background?
That's a very interesting comment. What she called the back row of the auditorium.
Yeah, and I think that's really profound. So it doesn't mean that you have to become indifferent over the person or angry or stay bitter or resentful, but to recognize their position in your life, to still love them, even if it's from afar, but to continue to move forward. I really thought that was quite profound.
Well, for the next several days on the show, I want to do some teaching that's going to tie into what we've just been talking about, because in the midst of it all, when relationships aren't where we want them to be, we still have to trust. We've got to trust in God. And I want to take people, the viewers today, to a passage that's really been an anchor in my life, helped me in the hard times. I think for many who know God's word, it's a verse of scripture that just helps them stand fast. And as you're watching today, that verse is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It's all about trusting. Who are we going to trust when life is more than we can handle? Who are we going to trust even when we think that we've got it all together? In Proverbs 3, Solomon wrote these words, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Years ago, I was preaching in Calcutta and had the opportunity to visit Mother Teresa's home of the dying. And those who were near death were there and cared for her by not only Mother Teresa, but by the many sisters who ran that place. And that short time there is embedded in my mind. And maybe that's why I connected so much with the story of John Kavanaugh. John Kavanaugh was a brilliant ethicist who went through a period of turbulence in his life as he's trying to piece it all together. And he went to the home of the dying for 3 months, traveled from the States to Calcutta, and he wanted to talk to Mother Teresa, but he also wanted to figure out his purpose in life, how to best spend the rest of his life. And on the first morning he was there, he ran into Mother Teresa, and she said, John Kavanaugh, what can I do for you? And Kavanaugh said this. He asked her to pray for him. And so she said, well, what do you want me to pray for? And he said, would you pray? And this was the request that had taken him across the ocean. Would you pray that I have clarity? And she laughed at him. She said, I'm not going to pray for that. She said, clarity is the last thing that you need. She said, I'm going to pray for you that you will trust in God. And the reason being is that many times we just say, oh, if I have clarity, if I know all this is going to happen, then I can handle it. I can manage it. And that is a misdemeanor. That is a huge mistake. And that's part of why I asked Rachel that question. What do you do when people, you come to them in a polite way and say, hey, I want to talk to you about how you've caused pain. We want to mend the relationship, but they back off and they're in denial. And as Ashley noted, having those people in the back row of the auditorium is a healthy place. We can still love them, we can care for them, and we're going to have to trust them to God. And just as we trust the broken things in our life to God, that he will mend them in his timing, I need to trust him with my life. And that's why through the course of the rest of this week, I want to talk about what does it mean to trust in the Lord? Because John Kavanaugh, he wanted clarity. But what he really needed was to come to the point saying, God, I can trust you. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I can trust you today, and I'm going to believe you're going to be with me tomorrow. You see, what trust suggests, it speaks of reliability. It speaks of strength, or of someone or something in a situation where we just know I can rest in God. I can rest in his care. That's been my experience, the experience of my daughter, Ashley, the experience of Rachel, as we have learned. But we have to learn every day. We have to make a choice to surrender, to say, God, I am going to trust you. In the Old Testament, they talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you rattle those names off, and you might not know who they are, but they're all people who had to learn to trust in God. And that's why David could write that amazing Psalm 23, that even when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil. Why? Because he is with you. He is with us. How do we know that? Because we choose to trust. And I want to invite you, as I do in almost in every program, that if you've never trusted Christ, today is a good day to reach out and say, God, I want to start trusting you. I'm asking you to be my Savior, my Lord, and my friend. Will you walk with me? Will you keep me? Will you sustain me? And guess what? When you ask him that, he always answers yes. Thanks for listening to The Perspective today.